had a one-night stand because friends said I was missing out. My fiancé found out and left me forever. It's been a while since it all happened. Enough time has passed to where I don't feel like my heart is going to fall out of my chest when I think about it. Maybe that's why I'm making this post now, because it hurts just a little less to speak about it. I'm not over it all, though, not even close. I don't think I could ever get over something like that. I had everything I could have ever wanted, and I lost it all because of one stupid mistake. There's no getting over that, but time makes it easier. I still can't stomach my mistakes or that I lost him, though. My fiancé was everything to me. Jude was my entire life, and I ruined all of it. I ruined all that we had together because I felt left out. It all seems so pathetic and so childish when I think about it now. Right now, it seems like everyone is so against love. Women are so against getting married and starting families. It's everywhere. I was never like that. I'd dreamed about my big day since I was a little girl. I'd planned everything out in my head, what the wedding would be like and the honeymoon, all of it. But I paid special attention to daydreaming about the groom. I fantasized about the kind of man I would marry and how we would make a life together. I had this picture-perfect image in my head of what everything would be like, and I carried it around with me as I grew up. Of course, when I got older and actually started dating, the rose-colored glasses eventually dimmed. I realized that I was a little naive in my wants, and that most of them weren't that realistic anyway. But through it all, I still held on to hope that at least some of it would come true for me. And then I met Jude. It was the night after a bad date, and I was scrolling through one of the many dating apps I had, looking through one last time before I deleted it. We had matched a while ago, and he had messaged me, but I never saw it until that night. His profile wasn't anything special, but he was very handsome. The date I'd been on had really discouraged me, and I wasn't really in the mood to go on another, but I don't know. I guess there was something about how Jude looked to me. I think it was his smile. He had a really good one, and it said in his profile that he was religious, which was important to me back then. I decided to give it a try with him. I thought, what's the harm? And that if it didn't work out, I would add him to the list of all my other failed dates and relationships. So I messaged him. He texted back almost immediately, and things just took off from there. After a few days of texting back and forth, things progressed to calls, and it sounds ridiculous, but I think I might have fallen in love the second I heard his voice. It was deep, but not like aggressive or anything. Just a little rough while also not being too abrasive. It was right in the sweet spot, and it drew me in even more. Most people who know me would tell you that I was a hopeless romantic who fell in love way too quickly, and though I would always try to argue otherwise, I knew that they wouldn't always be wrong. I did have a tendency to fall first and ask questions later. It was what happened with all my other relationships, and they would usually end up going wrong because I was too love-struck to pay attention to what was right in front of me. But I just knew that that wasn't the case with Jude. Our first date felt magical. I knew he was the one the second I saw that smile in person. Our first date wasn't anything over the top. We just got dinner at a little Italian place he liked, but it felt different from all the other dates I'd been on. He actually listened and asked me real questions. He seemed interested in who I was and didn't just talk about himself the whole time. Being with him felt easy, which wasn't something I was used to. After that night, we started seeing each other more often. If I wasn't at work or running errands, I was with him. He made everything feel light. Even the small stuff like watching TV or grocery shopping was better when we were together. It wasn't long before our friends and family started to notice how serious things were getting. My mom loved him almost instantly, and my friends liked him well enough. Jude was everything I'd always said I wanted. He was kind, thoughtful, and attentive. He didn't play games or make me doubt where I stood with him, and after years of dating the wrong people, that felt like such a relief. The proposal happened after about 2 years in. He took me back to the same restaurant where we had our first date. At first, I thought it was just an anniversary dinner, but he was being all secretive and cagey the whole time, and then after dessert, he got down on one knee. I don't even think he got through his whole speech before I was already saying yes. It was one of the happiest nights of my life. Things were amazing in the beginning. We were practically on cloud 9. We were making wedding plans and telling everyone about them, looking at venues, and talking about what our future would look like. But once the initial excitement of the engagement started to wear off, things began to shift a bit. Not in a huge dramatic way, just little cracks here and there. And that's where it all started to go downhill. After the proposal, I thought things would only get better. I expected us to feel even closer, more in love, because we were planning to spend forever together. But instead, after a while, it almost felt like Jude pulled back. Before, he was always making an effort, doing things like planning dates, surprising me with little things, constantly reminding me of how much he loved me. But then all of that slowed down. He got a bit distant, less caring. I don't think he was doing any of it on purpose in the beginning. I think that maybe he just got too comfortable, and maybe he felt like he didn't need to put in the same effort now that he knew I wasn't going anywhere. The romance that had once been so effortless between us, and the reason our relationship felt so easy, started to fade, and I didn't know how to bring it back. I noticed the changes more and more as the months went on. We still spent time together, but it wasn't the same. He didn't hold my hand in public as much. He didn't plan spontaneous dates, and sometimes he was so wrapped up in work or planning finances for the wedding that I felt like I wasn't even in the room or like I was purposely being ignored. It felt awful, but I tried to tell myself it was normal, that every couple drifts a little even though it hurt. And when I would vent about it to my friends, they always had the same response. They'd laugh and say things like, "Welcome to married life," or "The ring is usually the end of all the romance." One of my friends who had been divorced, the one who often had made all the jokes, used to joke that once a man knows you're locked down, all effort disappears. At first, I didn't take those comments seriously, but the more I thought about them, the more they started to get to me. I spent a lot of time comparing my reality to theirs, and it would always make me feel even worse. My friends went out often, and they always teased me for staying home, telling me I was missing out now that I was engaged. At first, I tried to brush it off. I really did. I thought, who cares if I'm not at every brunch or every Friday night? I had Jude, and that was what mattered. He was what I wanted. But as he pulled further into himself and away from me while I sat at home feeling more and more neglected, those jokes started to sting. They made me wonder if maybe I was missing out on fun or freedom or a version of myself that existed before Jude. And all those doubts only got worse after one afternoon when I went out to lunch with my friends. It was supposed to be casual, an opportunity for us to just catch up, but of course the conversation turned to me like it usually did. They teased me about never coming out anymore, about how I was tied down and couldn't do anything without checking with Jude first. They called me a future housewife, like I didn't have a decent job, and laughed like it was the funniest thing ever. They told me that I always acted like I'd signed my life away already. Normally I would have rolled my eyes and let it go, but that day it hit different. Maybe because of how things had been at home, maybe because I was already feeling insecure, but I found myself thinking that maybe they were right. Maybe I had lost a part of myself while being with Jude. So when they asked me to come out with them that weekend, I said yes. I told myself that it was just a harmless night out with the girls and that there was nothing to worry about. I thought it would be drinks, a little dancing, and then back home. I thought it might help me forget about the issues I'd been having with Jude, shake off some of the sadness I was feeling. But I was wrong. That night wasn't harmless. It was the night that ended the life I thought I was going to have. The night started out fine enough. We got to the bar, and everything was loud and crowded. I wasn't really in the mood at first. I hadn't been to a bar in a long while, so it took a while to get into the vibe. I ordered a drink just to have something in my hand, but I mostly hung back and let my friends chat and laugh around me. I felt out of place, like it was obvious I didn't belong, and was forcing myself to be there. My friends, though, tried to get me to stop sulking. They kept telling me to lighten up, to let loose a little. One of them even grabbed my hand and dragged me to the dance floor. I resisted at first, but I started to relax after a few drinks. I started to feel good and a little freer. I wasn't thinking about Jude, or the distance between us, or the wedding that suddenly felt more like a chore than anything else. We danced together for a while, but eventually they drifted off. They paired off with random men who had been hovering nearby. I couldn't do that, not with a ring on my finger. So I went back to the bar and sat there feeling jealous and guilty at the same time. That's when one of my friends, the divorced one, came up beside me. She ordered another drink for herself, and after seeing the way I was staring at everyone else, She shook her head and told me that marriage doesn't always have to be a prison. She said that I was too young to be so tied down, and that Jude hadn't exactly been treating me right lately anyway. So what the point of not having a little fun? I remember staring at her because I had no clue how to respond, and then she reached for my hand, pulled my engagement ring off my finger, and said that I was missing out for the millionth time before she went back to dance. I stared at my friends until I started to wonder if she was right. Jude hadn't been the same since the proposal. He was distant, a little cold, and more focused on work and bills than me. The longer I sat there, the more it ate at me. Maybe it really was my last chance. Maybe I did deserve one night for myself. So I drank some more and headed to dance. The drinks and the music helped me let myself stop thinking for once. I let myself move and dance with strangers, and when a man caught my eye and didn't look away, I didn't look away either. The guy didn't waste much time. He slipped in behind me while I was dancing, close enough that I could feel his body. He held onto my hips as we danced, and you let him. I didn't pull away. I practically encouraged it. It just felt good to have someone so focused on me and enjoyed dancing with him, the way he touched me, all of it. After a few songs, he leaned down and asked if he could buy me a drink. I didn't even think about it before saying yes. We made our way through the crowd and ended up tucked away in this darker corner of the bar, one of those spots where you could barely see anything. He handed me a glass, and I took it without even asking what it was. He asked me about myself, and I don't know why, but instead of telling him the truth, I started lying. I made up all these stories about myself, crafted a new persona for the night. None of it was real, but it felt almost freeing to invent someone else and be that person for a bit. We talked, we flirted, and he kept finding excuses to touch me. I let all of it happen. I even returned some of the touches. I didn't pull away when he brushed my thigh or played with my fingers while he talked. Normally, I would have rolled my eyes at half the things he said, but in that corner, it all felt exciting. At some point, he looked at me and asked if I wanted to leave. The way he said it made it obvious what he meant. My stomach dropped, and for a second, Jude popped into my head. I hesitated as I thought about the life we were supposed to be building. But then I looked up and saw my friends on the dance floor again, most of them wrapped up in the arms of men they didn't know, living without a second thought. And in that moment, I decided I was done waiting and missing out on it all. So I said yes to him. I shouldn't have said it. I really shouldn't have. But I was drunk and upset, and it felt nice to have someone's complete attention fit a few hours, like I used to get from Jude. Leaving the bar with him felt like stepping out of my own skin. I told myself I wasn't really doing it, that maybe we'd just talk a little more somewhere quieter. But deep down, I already knew what was going to happen. We grabbed a cab and made out in the back seat on the ride over. It made my heart pound like I was a teenager sneaking around again. By the time we got to his place, I wasn't thinking about anyone or anything else. The sex itself wasn't romantic. It wasn't special or even particularly good. It was rushed and messy. He was a bit rougher than I usually liked, but I let it all happen. I tried to let myself fall into the heat of it, and I convinced myself that it was freedom everyone kept telling me I needed, that this was me finally living a little. But as soon as it was over, and I was lying there next to a man I didn't even care about, and whose name I barely even remembered, the weight of what I'd done finally hit me. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The thought of lying next to Jude after what I'd done made me sick with guilt. I left as quietly as I could. I got dressed and headed straight to one of my friend's places. She was passed out by the time I got there, but she usually left the spare key somewhere, so I let myself in. The first thing I did was take a long shower. I guess some part of me thought that I could somehow wash the night and what I'd done off of me, but it didn't help. I still felt awful. After that, I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking about Jude and how I'd messed up all the plans we'd made together. And then, without thinking, I grabbed my phone and called him. It was late, and I woke him up, but the second he heard my voice and how upset I sounded, his tone shifted and he sounded worried. He started asking if I was okay, if something had happened. He knew I'd gone out with my friends, and he asked if I was safe, if I needed him to come get me or anything. Hearing him like that broke my heart even more. He was half asleep, and still his first instinct was to take care of me, to make sure I was okay. He didn't sound withdrawn, not like he had the past few months. He just sounded like the man I fell in love with. And I realized right then that no matter what my friends kept telling me, no random night out or meaningless hookup could ever compare to what I had with him. I told him I was fine, that I just wanted to check in. He believed me, told me he loved me, and that he'd see me later when I came home. When the call ended, I curled up and cried my eyes out. I remember giving myself such a headache that I had to take a Tylenol, and that was when I made up my mind. I couldn't tell him. As much as the guilt ate at me, I knew that confessing would only blow everything up. Jude loved me, and despite how strange he'd been lately, he was still my fiancé. I couldn't risk losing him over one reckless mistake, so I told myself that I would keep it all hidden and pretend it never happened so that I could protect what we still had together. I thought I was doing the right thing and that I was protecting the both of us. I thought it would all be okay as long as I kept it together and went on with life and focused on being a better future wife to him instead of dwelling on my mistakes, but my peace with him didn't last long. A few days after that night, everything started to fall apart. It wasn't even Jude who confronted me first. It was one of my own friends, the one who had always been the least vocal about me needing to be freer and who was the quietest that night. She had never really joined in the whole, "you're missing out" teasing the way the others had. She sounded serious on the phone, and at first I thought that something might have happened, but then she just asked if what she'd heard from the others was true, if I had really left the bar with another man. For a moment I almost lied and said I'd gone straight home, but before I knew it, the truth spilled out. I admitted what I had done and how much I regretted it. I poured it all out, hoping maybe she would understand, that maybe she'd keep it to herself, but instead she went quiet. After a while of silence, she finally said that I had crossed a line, that what I did wasn't just careless, it was cruel and unfair to Jude. The disappointment in her tone was heavier than I'd expected, and I felt uncomfortable after the call ended. I sat there staring at my phone, worried about the state of our friendship, completely unaware that it was the least of my problems. The real blow came a few nights later. Jude was in the kitchen cooking dinner while I was on the couch. It felt like we had gotten back to our normal, and it almost started to feel like maybe I had managed to bury the whole thing. Then his phone buzzed on the counter. I remember watching him pick it up, glance at the screen, and then step outside to answer. I didn't think much of it at first. He sometimes took calls outside if they were about work. They usually didn't last all that long, but this time he didn't come back in right away. It took almost an hour before he finally walked back inside, and he looked completely different. His whole demeanor had changed, and he looked angry. I could feel a pit in my stomach as he walked over to me, one that felt deeper and deeper as he asked me what happened that night. I knew then that my friend had told him something about what happened. There was no getting out of it for me. The truth came crashing out of me before I could stop it. He knew now, and there was no taking it back. So I knew that the best I could do was come clean and beg for his forgiveness, make him see that we were stronger than that one mistake. The hardest part of it wasn't even his anger at me. It was watching his face as I told him all of it. Seeing the way his face fell and watching him process that the woman he wanted to marry had betrayed him in the most careless way possible was almost unbearable. The first thing he did after I was done was tell me that I was wrong and that he hadn't been reserved on purpose. He had just been exhausted because he was constantly swamped with work. He felt stretched thin and barely had time for anything in those months. I had taken his stress as rejection. I had convinced myself that I was missing out, when really I had everything I ever needed. He didn't yell or scream. He didn't throw anything or insult me. Instead, he told me that it was over between us and the wedding was off. The life we had planned together was over before it had even started. He asked for the ring back, and handing it over felt like my chest was being ripped open. When I walked out of that house, I knew it was for the last time. The weeks that followed were relentless. My inbox was flooded with reminders of everything I'd lost. There were cancellation emails from vendors, refund rejections, lists of fees for cake tastings, venues and floral arrangements, everything. Each message was another reminder of the future I'd thrown away. I watched all the plans I had once been so excited about just completely dissolve and fade away. They all reminded me that there was no wedding to pay for anymore because there was no wedding at all. I tried reaching out, but Jude never responded. He shut me out of his life completely. No texts, no calls, no chance for an explanation beyond the confession. He was done with me for good, and there was nothing I could do. Now, months later, the weight of what I lost still feels heavy. I avoid the places we used to go together because even the smallest memory feels almost physically painful. The time has made the pain just a little less sharp, but it hasn't erased it. I still think about him and the night he found out. I wanted everything with him: marriage, a family, growing old together. And I was so close to getting it, but then I destroyed it all for one night of feeling like I was living a little. I told myself I could keep it hidden, that it didn't have to mean anything, but secrets almost never stay buried. They always find some way to come out, and when mine did, it cost me everything.